Good evening, everybody. Pete Meyer. Welcome to Shop Talk. This presentation is made by Endeavor Business Media's Vehicle Repair Group, and it's home, of course, to Motor Age, PTEN, ABRN, Aftermarket Business World, and Professional Distributor magazines. No matter what your role is in the automotive aftermarket, we've got you covered. A little bit different format, kind of an update of what has been happening here at the Marriott Coronado Island Resort in San Diego, California, where the Equipment and Tool Institute is hosting Tool Tech 2022. And co-located with the event is the spring general session of the National Automotive Service Task Force. And I wanted to bring you some updates from that I think you'll find not only useful and informative, but something that applies to all of us who make a living fixing cars, whether you're on the mechanical repair side or the collision repair side. And the first thing I wanted to share with you was a presentation made by one of United States Secret Service agents that's based here at the San Diego field office, with especially in cyber crime. And he brought a few things interesting to light. And what I really wanted to share with you primarily is if you're a shop owner, you have a certain liability to your customers and to your teammates when it comes to protecting them from informational theft. And there's a few things that you can be open up to. First, of course, is malware and ransomware. If you are connected to the internet, whether it's for your service information system, your shop management software, or it's a Wi-Fi service that you're supplying for your customers, your tools, your scan tools, your computer systems, and of course your customers' systems can be subject or could be subject to a malware or ransomware attack. Another thing that you have to be aware of when you're providing these kind of services is that you can also provide inroads for hackers to come in and steal your information, your personal information. We've seen this in the news. Big company data breaches. One that the agent pointed out was the Target data breach that resulted in over 70 million personal records being stolen. And then, of course, these are found on the dark web and can be used to steal someone's identity and wreak havoc with their credit. As the agent pointed out, it's something that you can recover from. A bad credit card. You get a bad credit card charge. That's one thing. You can deny that to your bank, and then they go ahead and take care of your charge and issue a new credit card, and then everything's back to normal, so somewhat. But if your identity's stolen, then that's a tough one to recover from, a real challenge, not going to help your dating. And the next speaker that was present, get too hard myself there we go, is Brian Daugherty of MEMA, that's the Motor Equipment Manufacturers Association. He is their Chief Technology Officer, and he was approaching cybersecurity a little more closer to home. And I want to make sure that I get this information right. So let me pull up some notes that I made here for that. And and we've kind of talked about this before. There is a lot of discussion going on between the manufacturers, the OEMs, and the automotive aftermarket, specifically, like the tool manufacturers, of what information access we can get. Now, we do have some other things that are in place. Many of you might be aware of the Massachusetts Right to Repair Act and a resulting memorandum of understanding that was signed among the manufacturers to provide us with information, as you'll see in a moment, equivalent to the access that the EPA and CARB now require for emissions-related items. But there were a few things he pointed out that I want to share with you. For example, one, did you know that the OBD2 connector, your diagnostic link connector, is now considered by many of the manufacturers as a cyber attack surface. What they mean by that is, all these little dongles that plugged in to these OBD2 connectors, all the insurance companies or fleet maintenance devices, all of these dongles that get inserted into the connector, and then wireless or Bluetooth communicate with another source, another tool, are openings for hackers to get into the vehicle systems. It's like wiring, as he pointed out. It's like plugging in a wireless phone into your connector, and the OEMs are concerned about that, and rightfully so, because a lot of the software that they have, especially with these advanced safety systems, they don't want that to get messed with. I understand that, and you may remember too. It's been some years now where this became apparent when a couple of guys actually hacked into a Jeep and took over the controls of the driver. They were able to change the radio station, change the HVAC settings, but then they got a little more serious. They are actually able to steer the vehicle, accelerate the vehicle, brake the vehicle, pretty much take over control with it. And what Mr. Dougherty pointed out here was that these type of devices, it's not a matter of being on one vehicle, but it's a matter of someone being able to get after hundreds or thousands of them at one time. So that was one thing that he mentioned that was kind of interesting. He also kind of compared that, if you understand how the control area network system works, when you plug your scan tool in, you are just making it another module on the network. Well, that's what the dongles are. It's just another module on the network, and there's no restriction when it's plugged into the network as to what information it can access on the network. Now, we saw FCA Chrysler with the secure gateway module a few years ago was a way to help kind of block that access and control it more. And that's okay. You can go to a website. In fact, I can give it to you. It's Auto, that's AUTO auth, AUTH, autoauth.com. And you can currently register your scan tools, your Wi-Fi enabled scan tools through that site so that you have access to the secure gateway. But when you multiply that by someone who's working on every brand of car, 30, 40 or more subscriptions they would have to keep up. Well, you can see real quickly where that's going to get out of hand and make it very difficult for the independent repair person. So that was one question that was being raised. And another factor is something he brought up that I think a lot of us already know, but if you're not, I'll make you aware of it too, that many of the OEMs are moving towards wireless connections to their systems and performing updates over the air. In other words, now when we have a flash to do, or a vehicle requires a flash, it has to be either brought into a dealership or a shop that's capable of performing that repair. And then, of course, you download the files from the factory server and then upload them into the vehicle. But this is all done through the cloud and would take us right out of the middle of it. And it's convenient for the factory because they can do every vehicle in that model line at the same time through one output, rather than having to bring in vehicles one at a time, like we would have to do now in the case of some type of recall or something that needed to be updated. But as one of our friends here on YouTube is saying, that kind of interferes with the consumer's right to decide who is going to who they want to repair their vehicle. And that's really where the conflict is coming in and growing. The OEMs on one hand want to protect their systems, make sure that they're not contaminated or interrupted with, they're continuing to function properly. And I think we can all understand that. But at the same token, the consumer has a right to have it fixed where they want. In fact, according to Mr. Dougherty, over 70% of consumers have their vehicles serviced by an independent repair shop. So if we get frozen out of the access to this information, that's really going to hinder that capability. So there's a lot of discussion going on right now. And something else I want to make sure you're aware of is the pending legislation is called the Repair Act, uh, rightfully enough. And it's addressing or trying to address these issues along with some other things that are pending. I encourage you to get involved with the National Automotive Service Task Force. I gave out their URL before. It's nastf.org. It costs nothing to join, but these guys are the ones they're the ones fighting for your rights to this information and doing what they can to ensure that you have it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about and bring to your attention is directly related to what we've been talking about so far, and that's access to information. And today, Donnie Seifer, Executive Director at the National Automotive Service Task Force, made some comments relating to an issue that's kind of come to a head. And this is the title of the press release that they issued, that the NASTF subcommittee releases a final report on Mercedes-Benz tool-related SIRs, which is Service Information Request Forms. And I want to get this right. So let me pull up a copy of that release so I can read it to you. And then we'll go back to the live stream here. The NASTF, the Automotive Service Information Standards Agreement that the National Automotive Service Task Force has, is the agreement by which automakers and NASTF resolve identified gaps in service information, tool information, training, and vehicle security information. Now, NASTF is identified in both the Automaker Industry Memorandum of Understanding and the Massachusetts Right to Repair Law as the party to assist in resolving these types of concerns. The ASIS agreement, in essence, takes the requirements of the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, regulation and extends them to all systems of the vehicle. In other words, we currently are required by law, the OEMs are required by law to allow us access to information that impacts emissions. You know that as global OBD2 on your scan tool. And the Memorandum of Understanding and the Massachusetts Right to Repair extended that to not just the ECM or modules affecting emissions, but all the systems on the vehicle. Okay, just to make that clear. Now, NASTF asks concerns related to Mercedes-Benz that influence the outcomes of most of the issues. Here's what they said briefly. Mercedes-Benz USA usually does not answer nor resolve any ASIS-identified service information requests that go through NASTF. These are requests from shop owners, technicians, tool makers. When they're requesting information that's not available and it's supposed to be available, they go to NASTF to have them intermediate for them. But in this case, you're saying that Mercedes-Benz USA has not been providing these answers in the agreed upon response time, which happens to be no longer than 2 days. And until recently, MB USA rarely responded in any way to the SIRs, the service information requests that were forwarded to them for review. I think today he's increased this number from over 90 to over 100 requests have been remained open for over a year and been shared with Mercedes-Benz at least once. Now, according to the ASIS agreement, tool information requests require a response of no longer than 15 days for information that's already made available, and information that is currently not available must be provided no later than 20 days after receiving the SIR from the National Automotive Service Task Force. They've been working very hard to address this issue at the NASTF level and others. ETI has been involved with it, and other members of the industry have been involved with it, trying to resolve this issue, and it just hasn't gotten done. So, Donnie Seifer, as I said, Executive Director, had a few things to say about it. Let's listen to what he had to say. Okay, sorry about that. I don't think he's talking. All right, give me just a second. Whoop. And we'll just try another route. And I apologize for the malfunction. We'll see if we can get that corrected for you quickly. Should take about a moment. So please hang in there with me. I think it's very important that if you're in the business, that you hear what Donnie has to say, and some of the other things that we already talked about this evening that came out of the National Automotive Service Task Force meeting. And it's very, very important to your future as a technician, your future as a shop owner, and you need to be involved in what's going on as it directly affects you. And that's, I think, was primarily what I want to make sure that you got that point this evening on. Should only be another minute or so to get this ready for you. All right, almost there. I appreciate your patience. Thank you so much. And this is kind of a new thing that we're trying. I need to get a little better at it, obviously, but I hope you find the information that we're providing to you informative and worth your while. And we're going to try this again probably in the next 2 days while we're covering the Equipment and Tool Institute event here in California. So let's go ahead and pull up now. I got it all ready for you. So this is what Donnie Seifer, Executive Director of NASTF, had to say regarding their attempts to resolve these issues with Mercedes-Benz. So if you're a shop owner or technician who's had to deal with MB Mercedes-Benz, then you're already probably very familiar with these. But here's what he had to say about it.
Many of you are aware, but some of you may not be, that NASTF has got signed agreements with automakers that are called the Automotive Service Information Standards Agreement. Basically, what that agreement says is that what's in the regulations for EPA, CARB, and actually the state of Massachusetts, because they're all very, very similar, what those bring to the table on the emissions side is carried over to other systems of the vehicle. And automakers provide information for all of the vehicle systems through that agreement. It also includes security for most automakers. Some autos are small enough that we don't get involved with them with security, but they still participate with us when called upon. That agreement has within it basically a way to mediate and arbitrate a problem. We've been working for almost 2 years with Mercedes-Benz on multiple problems that are all related around tool information. So most of you who are involved with tools are very well aware of this situation. So ETI is basically tasked with getting that information into scan tool makers' hands so that they can build competent tools that can do the job to the level that that company decides they want to build a tool. So we received a lot of service information requests around factory tool and its availability, J2534 tool and its availability. ETI has not had full, complete tool information since model year 2009. So this turns into a pretty big problem when you're trying to repair a car, and the only way you can get that tool is through a company who could turn your tool off arbitrarily at any time that they decide to do it. They also have a 4-year requirement on their subscription. So all of this has come to us through service information request. That's the tool that we have within that service information standards agreement. So that a technician can come to us and say, I'm having a problem finding this piece of information, or I'm having a problem buying this, or I'm having trouble using this. Most of the service information requests that NASTF receives today are information technology related. They have a lot less to do with there isn't this procedure available. We had those back when we started in 2000, but now they're really more, they're more around the IT related things. So with this brand, we've negotiated in good faith with them extensively. We tried to work out and solve these problems, and we just didn't quite get there. So we had a group of technicians who asked us to do the next step, which has never been done at NASDAQ. So we had to kind of invent the steps as we went along. The next step is to do what's called an information review process. And that is where a group of 3 automaker folks and 3, in this case, experts in the brand, review the service information request that the technicians didn't feel they got the answer they were looking for, and then come up with a response for that automaker. Now, part of the agreement is that automakers comply with the response. So ETI was, of course, really for us the big dog in this, because it was all the service information and the tool information are integrated into the tool. So that was actually how we were starting out. And then that team, because it became such a convoluted deal to deal with that many service information requests, we're talking about over 100 here. To deal with that, then we went to all of the industry regulatory agencies, and we went to, of course, the signers of the Memorandum of Understanding, and we talked with the state of Massachusetts to the degree that they responded. And what we got out of that whole picture, this is where we need you to understand what we're trying to do, and that we've kind of gotten, the board had a discussion about this, we've kind of reached the end of what we can do. Our findings, the committee was unanimous. There was no real big discussion about that. There was a lot of discussion about the how and the when and the why and all of that. But our findings were that Mercedes was non-compliant, mostly with laws, but also with the agreements that they signed. They were presented with a letter, here's the areas. By the agreement, they have 20 days to respond to that, and they didn't respond to it for over a month. So we now are at the end of what that Service Information Standards Agreement does for the industry. And we are now at a point where the industry needs to say, okay, here's what we found. We did the homework for you for months and months and months. Holly and I did paperwork and research and talked to technicians and tried to connect the dots on where things went together and documented all of this. So the last step that we took was to inform all of the agencies that were involved. We had several players that are part of the California Air Resource Board regulation called out as, the folks that are represented parties in that. ETI, again, is one of those, as well as the Automotive Service Councils of California, because they have a bunch of repair shops who were, service information requesters, as we call them. And we also have a scan tool company that is a California-based company that was one of our requesters. And then we had a bunch of members, just regular NASDAQ members, who also were from California. So we put a formal request for review of compliance in with them. They're working on that. So that's where we sit on this Mercedes situation. So you may have heard a little of this and a little of that, and maybe not the full picture, but that's where we sit. And so as NASDAQ, the board was all on board that we've reached the end of what we can do. We've published this information on our website. It's on our diagnostic network platform. It's available on request. So if you want to work with this brand and help us, really you're helping our technicians. Many of you are.
Okay, so now the slide decides to work. So we'll fix that again. Excuse me, I have a little something in my eye there. That's not good. Anyway, so basically what Donna's saying is that they've gone through every step that they can take that's available to them to try to resolve this issue with Mercedes-Benz, and Mercedes is not replying, which essentially puts them out of compliance with US EPA regulation and California Air Resource Board regulations. And now, of course, that's the next step, is to file that concern with the appropriate agencies and see what they can take it to the next step. But that's just right now, that's just Mercedes. And we don't want them to set any kind of a precedent here that's going to make it easier down the road. So again, if and a lot of you guys who are watching aren't necessarily professionals in the business, you're consumers, but you should be just as concerned about that as we should be. And again, I want to make sure that you participate in the process. And goodness, I don't know what's causing mine to get all irritated, and I apologize for that. But I want you to take an active role. You need to, for your own benefits. Again, consumer, DIYer, professional, you have a right to access the information that you need to repair your vehicle. Consumers have a right to decide where they want that vehicle repaired. But we do have to honor the concerns of the manufacturers when it comes to the security of their vehicles and the security of the software that they're putting into them, and access to that. So there's going to be some give and take. But you know what? There's not going to be any give unless we stand up together and put our voices together. So I want to make sure that we do that. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for Shop Talk Live right now. Again, kind of the first time doing it in this live method that I've never did before. And let me know in the comments if you think that this is kind of an interesting format I'd like to see on a more or less regular basis, with the news and information that you need to accelerate your business growth, keep you competitive, keep you informed, and technicians as well. This is your livelihood, and you need to be aware what's out there that may have an impact on that. And it doesn't matter whether you're a mechanical repair specialist or a collision repair specialist. It affects us all. It affects us all. So again, one more comment there. Go to the website, www.NASTF, National Automotive Service Task Force.org, and register for membership. Doesn't cost anything, but you do add your voice to the collective, and that's always a help. All right. So with that said, thank you for joining me tonight on Shop Talk, and we will try to be back tomorrow, maybe about this same time, with an update on everything that's going on here at the Equipment and Tool Institute Tool Tech 2022 in San Diego, California. So until then, it's Pete Meyer. Have a great evening.